Welcome, Young Jerks. Tonight we got some special guests in the green room. Got a big show tomorrow night too, with Paul, Dana, and Tracy. I believe at 7 p.m. Got a lot more content, a lot more shows. I really want to thank everyone for supporting and sharing. The last show we did, especially, really appreciate the comments and the support. Not solo tonight. We may do a little solo bit after 8 p.m., but we're gonna get right to the guests because we only got a little bit of time with one of them, Mazza Media, and probably with the attorney that we have. So let's just bring them up. Mazza Media, what's up, brother?
Good evening, Mike. Thanks for having me back once again. It's once again been an eventful week so far.
So much to talk about. So little time.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
Oh, it's
been the
been a while.
problem lately. Yeah, trying to
Yeah,
keep up.
right. Exactly. I have to spend like 2 or 3 hours every evening catching up and making sure I'm on top of everything, so I'm up to pace with everything. And yeah, it's just been absolutely eventful again today. And there was no shortage of anything that wasn't notable today or yesterday, for that matter. So it's going to be we're getting ready for a busy upcoming few weeks here, and it's already ramping up for sure. So
And we may not get to all of it tonight because we have an attorney that we want to speak to. And I know that he's not aware of every detail in this case. So, for people that are going to be commenting tonight and watching, please consider that. He's going to talk about the generalities. I guess that's how do you say that word, Mazza?
generality,
Yeah, generality.
generality,
Yeah, I have to
generality,
slow down. Generality.
generality. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's going to be talking about a lot about the prosecution and probably about Wendy Murphy. He's been going after her, which is quite entertaining. This is a criminal defense attorney in New York that we have tonight. He's also been an assistant DA, so he's been on both sides. And I've had a lot of criminal defense attorneys on this show. We actually were sponsored at one point by one. I love them. They're always great guests to have, great speakers. They have stories. So let's bring him up, Attorney Mark Bederow. I hope I said his name right. Hello, sir.
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been practicing criminal law for 25 years in New York. I started my career as a assistant district attorney in Manhattan. And after about 5.5, 6 years since then, I've been in private practice doing criminal defense at all levels, ranging from petty crimes to complicated homicides and white collar and everything in between.
And you've recently been commenting on both the prosecution for the Karen Reed case and this attorney that we're going to talk about, Wendy Murphy. Tell us about how you that kind of piqued your radar and what you've been
Well,
posting about.
I live in New York, but I'm from Massachusetts, so I certainly follow news, read the Boston Globe sports page, and sometimes creep over to other things. And certainly am familiar with the Karen Reed case on some level, just because it's interesting. I do this for a living, and it's close to home, so I do have some working knowledge of that. And of course, in just scrolling around Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days, seeing some of the commentary on this case has just been mind-blowing, in particular from this attorney, so they say, Wendy Murphy. When the other day I just came across a series of tweets from her that just struck me as so ridiculous and frankly hard to believe, given that she self-styles herself a constitutional law and civil rights expert and a former prosecutor. I can't believe that. I'm not saying it's not true, literally, but I just can't fathom it to be true, given on how stupid some of these comments are, and frankly, how little regard she appears to have for due process as a former prosecutor and practicing attorney. And she seems to be more into gaslighting than actually providing legal advice or expertise on any of this stuff. So,
Right. Her whole plot. It's funny because Turtle Boy exposed a lot about her recently that she is all 100% pro bono, and getting on TV is like the full-time job that doesn't pay. Are you surprised that they still put her up on court TV?
it's another one of these examples. It's hard to fathom. you wonder what they're doing. I mean, Court TV has a quite a stable of competent legal experts. They cover a lot of important things. Excuse me. And one would think that they could find somebody who actually practices criminal law, understands the issues, has a respect for due process, has respect for, a defendant's right to a presumption of innocence. And perhaps more importantly, as an attorney, what's your most important asset? Credibility. And when it comes to this Wendy Murphy, her credibility is destroyed in two simple words: Duke and lacrosse. I mean, at that point, how anyone would put her on TV, given her disgraceful defense of that prosecution, the accuser, and the district attorney, who ironically is the only individual who went to jail in connection with that case, was the district attorney. And of course, the accuser is currently in North Carolina prison for murder, amongst other things. But it is unbelievable that Court TV would have someone like that on, and perhaps they just haven't done their due diligence, because she adds nothing, doesn't know what she's talking about, and has no credibility.
And she's also been, my reporting shows that she's been sanctioned in, I believe, West Virginia. And we were the first, as far as I know, to like put that out and report it. And I asked her about it, and she blocked me.
Well, I've been blocked too, for simply trying to respond to what, providing actual analysis to her nonsense, as I said, gaslighting. And she's also profoundly nasty in her give and take with people. Everyone, I mean, you talk about unable to read the room. Everyone is an idiot, a moron, a liar, a dope, doesn't understand. And she knows, of course, what she's talking about. And I'm sure, you can get into some of these series of tweets in specific. We can break them down. But again, her analysis, it's not legal analysis. It's just wrong. It's stupid. She's been on bad legal takes. Shocking. I just, as a practicing attorneys, a lot of people don't like them. She is just awful for this profession. She has just no credibility, has no business commenting on this case as an expert. She certainly has every right to comment as any other person, but she tries to exploit her resume to come off as some kind of expert and mock the so-called unwashed people who have the temerity to actually believe in the presumption of innocence and state, as it stands now, that, Karen Reed just might actually be innocent. Oh my God, what a radical theory.
Right. We can talk about that too. I definitely do want to talk about that. But while we're talking about Wendy Murphy, she made these statements, like this statement here, talking about that Karen Reed would have to plead the fifth.
That's one of many. I think the one that I see on the screen now is, this one is the first one that I saw and just could not contain myself. And again, no clue who this person was, but in her bio, again, I can't emphasize enough, she's telling people, I am a constitutional and civil rights expert. Who, if not a constitutional expert and civil rights expert, should not have great respect and understanding for a defendant's right to due process, the presumption of innocence, prosecution behaving properly, understanding all of their obligations and fairness to the defense, including the disclosure of exculpatory evidence, not making a mess with public statements that a prosecutor shouldn't be making, those sort of things. And instead, she's out there tweeting that, the public has every right and in fact should presume her guilty. That is just dumber than dumb and disgraceful for anyone who calls themselves a lawyer to say. I'm aware, based on looking at some other stuff that she wrote before I got blocked, that, this person who also, again, a constitutional and civil rights attorney, and also someone who apparently espouses for victims' rights, women in particular, is someone who claims that she, represents the rights of women who have been sexually assaulted and whatnot. She posts a series of tweets essentially wishing sexual assault on Karen Reed if in the event she's convicted. Anybody who takes this woman seriously shouldn't. She is a joke. She is a clown and a complete disgrace to the profession.
Yeah. I mean, it's very true. It's she,
I
and
mean,
she put, no, go ahead.
no, I don't know what else to say. And her immediate response to me, again, this is somebody I don't know, was that I'm an idiot, a moron, a liar, a this, a that, and and then she hits and runs. So she's also a coward, because if she wants to go lawyer to lawyer and have an exchange of ideas in any kind of debate, what civilized, normal lawyers do is argue respectfully, make your points, and somebody may be right, somebody may be wrong. There may be some in between. Some of the people publicly may agree or disagree, but what this coward does is make these idiotic statements when she gets criticized, call everybody stupid and dumb, and then run out of town and get offline. That is just pathetic. And for a lawyer to do that tells you that she's very thin-skinned, obviously. And again, I can't fathom her actually practicing in a courtroom as a prosecutor, which something else, given the views that she has, and that if she was in fact a former prosecutor, God only knows, if you were a defendant being prosecuted by a prosecutor with those views, that's frightening.
Yes, absolutely. I can't imagine her being a prosecutor. I just can't. It'd be horrible. Her son tries to act like a prosecutor in some instances we've found. Mazza Media, do you have any comment on any of this tonight?
Yes, I can also join the party by saying that I've also been blocked by Wendy Murphy as well. I made some post about her probably about 4 or 5 months ago, and our buddy Dave um, had tagged her in the post, and then she just came back and like blocked me a couple minutes later. But to me, the most crazy interview I ever saw with her was Surviving the Survivor last maybe August or September of last year, when she was on there with Turtle Boy and a few other folks, and she's just screaming and yelling like a lunatic. There's like 4 or 5 people on this, show with the host and everything. And finally, the host just puts her on mute, and you see her on camera. She's still screaming and yelling at the camera.
The hands, she's going like
Yeah,
this, yelling,
yeah.
ah!
Leave the
But you
damn
couldn't
dog alone. Yeah.
yeah. And then they
Oh my
shut her
goodness.
off. You couldn't hear her volume. You just saw her just like a baby. It was crazy.
There's obviously a lot of public debate over Karen Reed, and there's people who are very into this with very strong feelings on both sides, and whatever. I prefer to take the more, again, lawyerly view of she's presumed innocent, and whatever happens. But I don't think she'll get convicted, by the way, just because I think there's reasonable doubt all over the place.
Yes.
I'm not getting into, I don't know if she's innocent or guilty, but lawyers talk about guilt and not guilty, not necessarily innocence. But what I haven't seen, and again, I'm not the expert in studying Twitter 17 hours a day, looking at everyone's posts, but the other vocal advocates who want to believe or do believe that Karen Reed is guilty, they ought to come out and disown this lunatic, because she's not helping the cause. She comes off as an unhinged lunatic who, again, has a law degree, and that somehow gives you added credibility, which it might when you're analyzing cases that you're supposedly involved in the profession. But when you see what her analysis is, I believe that my 14-year-old son would provide better legal commentary than she does. It's truly unbelievable.
The thing is, I think they don't have any other options, though, because if you look at their crew of people who think that Karen Reed is guilty, their whole crew is like, I mean, I don't want to pick on them, but they're not the best people. Like Wendy and Coffindaffer are like the best that they can come up with, and they're like, right? Am I right, Massa?
Oh, you're 100% correct. That was so well said. Yeah.
One of the things too, I'm not the expert on this, but don't understand is, why is this, kind of gadfly, clueless attorney what is her stake in this? Why is she so off the rails,
Exactly.
demanding that this woman be burned at the stake before she has a trial, and literally advocating that the public can and should believe she's guilty? They should believe that if she doesn't testify on her own behalf, that she's absolutely guilty. Why is she so invested in this? I mean, she's even running around making statements, just, that if she doesn't invoke the Fifth Amendment, then, she's clearly guilty, and then she runs the risk of the prosecution calling her as a witness. That there isn't a whatever comes after dumb is what that is, and I don't even know what the word
Even
is.
I know that. Like, come on.
And again, you have
You're
to view this.
defended. You don't have to
have to-
speak. You
You've
have the
got
right to remain silent, right?
Of course. But you have to view this from the lens that she's coming at this as a former prosecutor, allegedly, a constitutional expert and civil rights expert, saying she better invoke her fifth. In other words, in Wendy world, she believes, apparently, that a criminal defendant would literally have to be called as a witness and say, Your Honor, I refuse to answer questions on the grounds that anything I say may tend to incriminate myself. That if that were to ever happen in a court of law, even in Wendy world, wherever she might actually practice, any appellate court would reverse a conviction in 3 minutes based upon that alone. That would be the end of it. And then when she adds to the crazy with crazier and suggests that, if she doesn't invoke, then the prosecution will call her. I mean, what she's literally suggesting is that the DA in Norfolk County or wherever would get up and say, the prosecution calls Karen Reed. This is, again, children know that this is not how this works. And we're supposed to believe that this former prosecutor doesn't. So I don't know if she's just dumb, if she's overly gaslighting, if she's just a fraud, who knows? But anyone who gives her a forum to speak, when you consider that, you consider the Duke lacrosse that we talked about, you reference that she's probably been sanctioned for lying. It's not a good look for court TV, and it's not a good look for the law school where she claims to teach as well. That's also shocking.
It is. I wonder if she's still teaching there, or it seemed like there wasn't enough enrollment for her on some semesters. That's what Turtle Boy showed, that she wasn't even making money there.
Oh, I mean, who would pay to listen to this?
Exactly.
When you can listen to the entertainment for free on X.
You've coined a new term. Mazza Media noticed this. Wendy World. We love this Wendy World.
Wendy World. I like it.
It makes my brain hurt. Reading her analysis, as I was telling a friend of mine, it actually makes my head hurt, because it's just so profoundly wrong and stupid. And she will double down. And go down with the ship, and she'll gaslight. I don't know what else it is. She'll come back and say, you're an idiot. Where do you work? You went to law school. This is like a clown show of clown shows. And I can't, even if you think Karen Reed is guilty, I don't think you should think that before you've heard any evidence, because contrary to the Wendy World School of Law, you should wait until evidence is presented in a courtroom. You should be open-minded. But even if you are inclined to think, well, she must have done this, she must have done that, you need to be credible. And the way to be credible is to say, Wendy Murphy is a clown with no credibility, and she doesn't speak for me, she doesn't speak for us. And, to use logic and facts. And for the love of God, find another so-called expert to help your cause, because this ain't her.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about her and her son, who's another leader of the anti, and some of these other folks. I say it's like the best thing ever that they're the ones that are leading it. It's like but you said something.
I'm sorry. I don't mean, can I get back to something? I think I kind of got off point and never know if you guys had any theory or answer. Why is she so invested in this to the point of clowning herself and destroying what little is left of her credibility after Duke lacrosse? I mean, what is there any understanding of why she is doing this?
This is totally a guess, but this is my opinion, knowing her grift. She occasionally represents the worst, the victims of like the worst crimes
Okay.
and children, and she's done that type of work. So I
Nothing
think
wrong
that
with that.
exactly, and I think this is about her currying favor with law enforcement so that they go after the real bad guys for her. You know what I mean? Like that's what I feel like in her
So the hill
political
to die on is
connections.
Karen Reed. That's her hill to die on, to
Yeah, she
stuck
doesn't
up
care
for law
about Karen
enforcement.
Reed. Karen Reed's not someone she's helping.
But I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's what
also,
I think. And I also think she hates Turtle Boy. I think that it's also a lot that she hates Turtle Boy.
boy, that guy has a great talent to just drive them crazy,
Yeah.
get under their skin, and make people twist themselves into knots. It's he does good work.
Yeah. And she just seems to start fights with everyone too. Like I've noticed, because I've been a lot involved in a lot of politics, and especially with some of the more progressive Democrats. Um, I noticed she goes after them. Like the people that are actually at the forefront of her causes, she attacks. Like, you know what I mean? Like Diana DeZoglio, who is the Massachusetts auditor right now. Something bad happened to her, like sexually, I think, a sexual assault at the State House. And she's been fighting. And you think Wendy would be supporting her? I see her go after her on Twitter. Like that's the type of person Wendy is. She just,
There is
something's not right.
there is a nastiness and what I can only assume is an element of misery and projecting that misery on others, and being a keyboard warrior and all that goes with that. It in some ways it's sad, but she's doing real harm. I mean, she's going after people, and there may be people who may not know her background and see that she's a so-called expert and opines on these things, and there could be people who get influenced by this. So in that sense, she's dangerous, and to run around telling people it's your obligation to find Karen Reed in your mind guilty, this is just stupid. I mean, again, I'm repeating myself, but she needs to be rejected. She needs to be pushed aside and put, at the little kids' table and the island of the misfit toys. She's just not a serious person. She's not a serious lawyer, and she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. Just, she really should go away in terms of opining as an expert.
I wanted to ask you, she came after you,
Yeah.
saying you should be like sanctioned or something.
Right.
She's
Right.
also come after the defense team of Karen Reed, saying that they should be sanctioned with the BBO.
Right.
I mean, what do you think about that? Like she goes after the defense of Karen Reed. Is Karen Reed, as far as you see, like looking on the outside from your legal expertise, do you think Karen Reed's team is doing a good job defending
I
her?
think they're doing an outstanding job defending her. Okay. They are vigorously and zealously representing their client as they are supposed to do. They are conducting their own vigorous defense. They have, again, I don't want to go by just media reports. I mean, I'm willing to listen to evidence and draw a conclusion, but based on what is out there, based on some of the things that they've exposed and learned, they appear to have poked many, many holes in the prosecution's case. And again, the goal of the exercise from a lawyer's perspective is reasonable doubt. Now, of course, every lawyer wants to establish actual innocence, but that's not the goal of the legal exercise. In theory, you could think that Karen Reed probably did it, but I don't know that that there's a plausible excuse that she didn't. Well, that's not guilty. And these are skilled lawyers. And I mean, it seems that they're well on their way to poking those kinds of holes. And for all you know, may very well get to that feeling that lawyers love, which is convincing people that someone is actually innocent. But whether they do or they don't, I think they're doing a spectacular job. And the idea of them being criticized by some hack, who doesn't know what she's talking about and just says things again that non-lawyers would know is not the case. I'm sure the lawyers do, her lawyers do what I do, just laugh at it. I mean, her response to me in basically saying that you have no respect for due process, and it's just legally speaking one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, was you're an idiot. And when this continued with a lawyer to lawyer, in theory, dialogue about what's going on, it turned into I'm a liar and I should be sanctioned. And I mean, how do I feel about that? I laugh. um, my only regret is it took her 4 or 5 days to hit the block button, because I mean, for my daily entertainment, I did enjoy seeing her nonsense. But it's being blocked by someone like, I mean, really, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, again, I think she's childish. As I noted in one of my responses to her, it's petulance. I'm going to make my points, tell everyone I'm smart, you're dumb and a liar, and I don't like the answers you're making. So I'm going to call you stupid and corrupt. And before you can respond, I'm going to block you. I mean, isn't that the ultimate act of cowardice by a lawyer?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows you how weak she is.
Yep.
We had a question from another attorney who comes on the show. He's an estate attorney. He wanted to ask about reasonable doubt in this case. What is that? What does reasonable doubt mean? First of all, like what does that mean, and how does that look for this case with Karen Reed?
It means if you doubt based on the evidence, and that's the important thing. First of all, it's a concept in the courtroom. So, jurors are going to have to wash away all of what they've heard. And, that's part of the problem with picking a jury, especially, in a case like this, which certainly, in a county, not that Norfolk County is small, but, by standards of the amount of media and the amount of people in that county, and everyone has an opinion, and all the press that goes with it, that can be difficult. But based upon the evidence in the courtroom, if a juror has a doubt of the defendant's guilt, and it's a doubt that is reasonable in the sense it's plausible, it's not emotional, it's not because I like someone or don't like someone, but it's a doubt for which there is evidence or an inference that I can draw based upon the evidence, that I could say I have a legitimate doubt, a reasonable doubt. It can't just be something so far off that's subjective because I want to go home or I don't like the way the defendant looks. So it really just comes down to, in layman's terms, is it plausible that she didn't do it? And by the way, that is a high burden. And which is why, based on a lot of the evidence that we've heard, one wonders why the DA is going to die on this hill as well, in terms of going forward with this case. And I mean, this case, obviously, whatever the result is going to be, has problems that are unbelievable. I mean, the idea that the federal prosecutors in the District of Massachusetts are investigating the investigators, never mind, again, what in Wendy World and others might say that doesn't mean anything, that's no big deal. That means everything, okay? It's not normal for the U.S. Attorney's Office to conduct a simultaneous investigation of a state prosecution of a woman for murder while the state is still prosecuting their case and hasn't brought it forth to trial. It tells you many things. It tells you there's obvious problems with the way the state prosecutors have conducted themselves in the eyes of the feds. Moreover, the fact that they're investigating now as opposed to after tells you that their concerns at the time were so great that there might have, at least at some point, been concerns with even letting this go forward. In other words, that, it's not their case per se, meaning the feds, but, as prosecutors, they have an obligation to make sure an injustice doesn't happen. And obviously, if Karen Reed were to be convicted by state prosecutors or police officers or whoever are doing something illegal or wrong, and it's material and relevant to the outcome of the state case, then, that would be a reason for the feds to do this. But to be clear, this never happens. That is a red flag of red flags. But to get back to the question, as long as there is anything that could give someone doubt for the prosecutor's case, that's reasonable doubt. So I'll give you some examples with the caveat, again, I'm not the meat and potatoes expert on the evidence. I read articles, but I don't study transcripts. And, from a lawyer's perspective, you don't like to just do what Wendy does and just breeze over things and make conclusions. But for example, if there is credible evidence that there were dog bite injuries that I'm familiar with that could have caused some of this, that's a problem. If there is credible evidence, which clearly it appears there would be, the way phone records work, that one of these people that the defense is kind of raising eyebrows and pointing fingers at was making searches at 2:30 in the morning or whatever the exact time was, saying how long to die in the cold. That's weird.
Yeah,
That's troubling.
weird.
I mean, now look,
Yeah,
I know the prosecution is, oh, well, that's not true. That was done at 6:30 or later. Well, you know what? I'm not a technical expert, but having dealt with phone records and Celebrite and whatnot and all these other companies, the fact of the matter is, if the defense has credible experts who are going to get up and say, yeah, it very well could be true, and here's why, that's a problem.
That raises doubt. I mean,
Absolutely.
that just right. Let me ask you a question too, because this came up. The defense wants to bring in the DA as a witness, and just like today, I believe we found out that they're pushing back on that. They don't. The prosecution is saying no, you can't have the DA on the stand as a witness. Have you ever seen that where the prosecution gets called in? And what's the judge going to do on that?
Not usually in an actual trial in front of a jury. There are times where prosecutors are called as witnesses if they have involvement in material parts of the case. So, for example, if you have one ADA who conducts an interview of a defendant, it's possible that, assuming another DA is trying the case, that prosecutor could testify. In pretrial hearings, it could be very common that prosecutors testify, whether it be about statements of the defendant or if there's an allegation made about whether they were knowingly withholding, alleged exculpatory evidence, that sort of thing. Now, even when that happens, is it common that the elected official, in other words, the DA, would be called as a witness? It's extraordinarily rare. It's extraordinarily even attempted because there's usually no reason to do it. I would really love to know what the defense's reason for that. Whatever that reason is, the prosecution is always going to push back and say it's not appropriate. He doesn't have any relevant information. This is all part of their attempt to muck it all up. So I would really like to know what the basis for calling the DA is. Now, again, if these were pretrial hearings, I would understand it, because this DA, and I'm talking about the elected official, I mean, this guy's got issues as well. I mean, some of the things that he said in terms of press conferences and whatnot way back when, under New York law. I mean, I'm not going to profess to be an expert on Massachusetts law, but most states have very similar ethical rules. So I'm going to, for purposes of this conversation, assume the same rules would apply. But for the elected official to make, whether they be video statements or just loud interviews that are recorded and talk about the case, if that could have a possible impact to the public on the outcome of the trial and might improperly influence a jury, that's misconduct. You can't, for example, there are things you can't talk about. You can't talk about as a prosecutor publicly. You do it in the courtroom on the record. You can say that all you want, but giving press statements, you can't talk about statements a defendant made, whether you have an opinion of a defendant's guilt, what scientific tests were performed, all these kinds of things. The only time you can ever even arguably do this under the ethical rules, of which I believe would apply in Massachusetts as well, if not, I'm sure a Massachusetts lawyer will correct me, is if the other side makes a prejudicial statement and there's no other way to kind of confront the prejudice that might attach from that without pushing back, so to speak. Those aren't the legal words. That's the colloquial thing. But so, I mean, the DA has clearly done that. They appear to be very nonplussed by the fact that there is this disturbingly close relationship amongst relatives, the police officer and people that were close to the police officer who was killed. That's highly disturbing. They fight like hell in disclosing witness statements. I had read somewhere and even commented, again, I comment more on the legal issues than the factual ones usually when I'm not that familiar with the facts, but there was this suggestion by somebody that these police officers in a case like this just don't take any notes, that, witnesses just are going to come in and, I spoke to the detectives about this high profile homicide case, but, nobody saw fit to pick up a pen and prepare a police report. These are red flags of something is wrong. Okay. Prosecutors do that when they don't want the defense to have access to prior statements and potential inconsistencies. There's no reason to do that other than that. And, they used to do this in a very troubled county in New York, in the city, and they were highly criticized for this kind of thing. But, it appears to be standard practice in Norfolk, Massachusetts.
Yeah. And some of the documentation on chain of evidence, especially around the car, like they didn't take photos. And
that's incomprehensible. And
right.
That also, by the way, a shitty investigation, pardon my French, or an incompetent investigation, or one which makes no sense, to circle back to a prior point, that can play a great part in finding reasonable doubt. I mean, the defense, I'm sure, will call into question the integrity of the investigation, the relationships, and that sort of thing, and not just throw it out there that there are these relationships, so therefore she can't be guilty. But, why didn't they take notes? Why didn't they document this? Why didn't they interview these witnesses? Why did they do these things and tie it together? And you add it to all the other little holes that appear to be poked here and there. And, again, reasonable doubt is a very tough standard for the prosecution. And they're going to have a hell of a time getting a murder conviction in this case.
I think so. That's the whole thing. I don't see how they get there. Mazami, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I got a question for Mark. What do you think about this? The fact that Michael Proctor from the Massachusetts State Police said that the taillight was shattered, but yet when it's being towed away, it is intact. And not only is the taillight intact, but it's lit up.
I think look, I'll give you the obvious answer because it's the correct answer. That's a problem for the DA. I mean, another way of saying what he's saying is, 2 + 2 is 5. And I'm telling you, that's what it is. So, I mean, look, that makes no sense if what you just described is the case. That's an easy fact, by the way, for jurors to grasp and say, this doesn't make sense. And, if they don't have pictures of this so-called evidence, how could that be? I mean, if that's the case, if their theory is she backed into him, she's angry, and she just rolled over him, and then she said later, I hit him, which, by the way, that so-called admission, I don't find that powerful for a few reasons, which we can talk about in a minute. But there ought to be a lot of evidence that's consistent with that, such as, proof of the broken taillight and other things. And, I understand the prosecution is banging the table saying we have evidence, but if the defense has, from what I read, 3 accident reconstruction experts who were hired by the feds. Again, now the feds, they're the feds. Presumably they're looking into this with, in an agnostic sense, legally speaking. We just want to know what's going on here. And if the defense has subpoenaed 3 accident reconstruction experts, and the expected belief is that they're going to look the jurors in the eyes, or at least look the jurors who can see them in the eyes, as I also read about something else about this bizarre courtroom. But all kidding aside, if the credible testimony from defense experts is that, in our opinion, expert opinion, based on years of experience in accident reconstruction, and, I'm hired by the federal government, I'm hired on both sides for this and that the injuries are not consistent and the evidence is not consistent, you could say without more, that's game over for the prosecution. That that could be literally reasonable doubt with not a
Right.
shred of evidence more.
Right.
So many options on the reasonable doubt, it seems
Yep.
like. You just mentioned the courtroom. It's so many, like, it's weird. So many sideshows in this whole thing. And this is another one. The jury not being able to see the witnesses, being in
Well,
front of them, being behind them.
yeah.
Have you ever heard of that in any
No,
other courtroom?
and if that courtroom is configured in that way, that's disgraceful. They need to, do something and fix that because, again, what piqued my interest about this is another Wendy World comment, which, to circle back, because she had an opinion about this as well that someone forwarded me because, I'm blocked. But a important fundamental constitutional right that Professor Wendy, the expert, is familiar with is a defendant's right of confrontation. That that's to cross-examine, confront your accuser. More importantly, or not more importantly, but as part of that analysis, part of your right to confrontation is to assess the demeanor of the witness, right? And who needs to see more than anyone the demeanor of a witness who may be getting destroyed on cross-examination or may be giving off body language signs that are not consistent with truth telling? Well, the jurors, obviously. And if the defense point is that there's a few jurors who are going to be sitting in a position where they can hear what the witness is saying, but can't see. Is he staring at the ground? Is he wrapped up tight, like I'm doing now? Is he doing things that would appear to make body language not consistent, with truth telling? The defense has a right to know that. So, they're concerned about that. And Professor Wendy opined that, this is just another stall tactic, bullshit motion by the defense. And what defendants do is make motions when they know their client is guilty because they're setting up an appeal. And, she knows that they're lying, or words to that effect, because, she's been in that courtroom many times and it's not like they describe. And that is, again, another example of just utter disregard for a defendant's fundamental right to confront witnesses. Right back to, again, she must be guilty because lawyers are doing this. Look, lawyers file motions because that's part of being a zealous advocate. No lawyer who's good at this, no matter how confident they are, assumes anything. Okay. And it's a hell of a burden for Karen Reed's lawyers. I mean, because if you represent a client that you believe is actually innocent, that's the worst burden to carry of all as a lawyer. That, my God, I have to defend someone I believe is innocent on trial for their life, who could be facing a prison sentence for the rest of their life. Any lawyer, such as these lawyers, who, again, I think are doing a spectacular job, is going to push every button to zealously represent and protect their client, both in legal procedure, protect the record during the trial, and, God forbid, after a trial, if you come in second, which you clearly don't want to do. And for her to complain that this is just lawyers acting on behalf of a guilty client and doing this to stall, delay, and prepare for an appeal because they know she's guilty, I mean, she's just pathetic. It's just another example. But no, I've never seen a courtroom configured where jurors can't see witnesses. That is terrible. And I'm a little surprised it hasn't come up before, that prior lawyers actually didn't raise it, preserve the issue. And if clients got convicted, raise that on an appeal. I think an appellate court would be troubled by that as a violation of a Sixth Amendment right to confront witnesses against you.
It's crazy. I can't believe it too. Like that. It's never been brought up until this case, until these attorneys.
But that's an example of them, again, doing good, solid advocacy. That's not them assuming their client is guilty, so we better, file a motion because jurors can't see. I mean, if anybody can't understand why a lawyer doesn't want jurors to be able to see, the demeanor of witnesses, I mean, that's just silly.
Now, we had a question. People come in late. they want to know what kind of lawyer you are, Mark. You're a criminal defense attorney, right?
Yes. No, as I said, I was a prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office in New York, the law and order office, as we used to like to say back then, and then have been in private practice in Manhattan for 20 years since then. So I practice criminal law. And when I put that on my resume, unlike the other person we've been talking about tonight, it's what I do. And I try to at least make sure I know what I'm talking about before I say it publicly.
And when you were with the Manhattan DA's office, what kind of cases were you prosecuting there?
All kinds. Again, I mean, it's New York City, right? I mean, any young prosecutor starts out with, crimes that, these are like New York City crimes. I mean, you had people who jumped turnstiles in the subway or did things like that. But, ultimately, I mean, it is New York City. So by the time you leave, you're up to people being subjected to very serious crimes, violent crimes, murder, or things similar. All kinds of white collar crimes, as we talked about, falsifying business records, which is the crime du jour in Manhattan with Trump. That's another conversation for another day we can have. But all kinds, and in private practice, everything, murder cases, other types of high profile stuff, and sometimes little stuff, all over the place.
Awesome. Mazza Media.
Yeah, the next question I had for Mark was just to ask you about the jury selection process. And there's some concern among some of us in the movement about this selection process and who is actually going to be vetted and selected as the jury. Presently, they're aiming, obviously, for your 12-person jury with 8 alternates is what they're targeting. As a defense attorney for you, have you ever had any concern about the jury selection process in terms of this being just not in your favor, and if so, do you ever feel like that affected your ability to perform in court, get your point across, anything of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, normally, again, and I'm speaking generally, not about Karen Reed, because I
Yeah.
think Karen Reed is the opposite of what I'm about to say generally.
Mhm.
The first concern I would have generally is that if there was a case of just unknown defendant A in a county like Norfolk County, which I know is a larger county in Massachusetts, but it's not that large for given the amount of attention that the case is getting, particularly locally, but also, we're hearing about it in New York. Look, they made the New York Post with this one. Okay. That's the gold standard of it's everywhere. So normally I would be concerned, how am I getting a fair jury for, in a county of this size when everybody has heard about the case, everybody has an opinion. It just, so the first thought you'd have is, am I seeking a change of venue? The reason why I assume, I don't know the defense attorneys in this case personally, that they did not do that is because I think this case is the opposite. I think putting aside, again, a lot of the quackery and the Wendy's and all of that, that the majority of people and the majority of the press, again, on a reasonable doubt standard, has actually been very good for her. And I think that, and they'll certainly voir dire, which is the process of jury selection, or did voir dire about what reasonable doubt is. But I think that the defense actually would go in with an advantage in jury selection in this particular case. Now, again, you need to weed out the quacks and the weirdos and those who are, too invested in this one way or the other. And of course, the prosecution is going to want to get rid of everyone who they think is, free Karen Reed. And that's, again, I would be concerned if I were them, because a lot of people seem to support her. But so I don't think the defense is concerned literally in that. Now, the other thing is that in order for her to get convicted, the DA has to get 12 out of 12. And so, if the defense were even to get one juror to hang the jury, then she's not getting convicted. And then there's this issue of, are they going to have to retry the case? And there's going to be a lot of public pressure on the DA not to do it. And who knows what else would happen? More evidence comes out, or more whatever comes out suggesting that maybe she didn't do this, or they find other evidence that's exculpatory. But I don't think the defense here is going to be the one that ought to be concerned with the jury selection. I think that it's going to help them.
Yeah. What do you think? Follow-up question. What do you think about, there's been a lot of statements about Karen Reed's defense team. They have a great, great presence. They're very well spoken. They're extremely well prepared. The opposite of that is prosecutor Adam Lally, who looks like the kid with the blanket with all the dirt on him on the Charlie Brown show. He just doesn't look focused. He doesn't look attentive. He doesn't look engaged. In terms of a jury's perspective, I know you're the defense attorney, you have the defense attorney's perspective, but what have you ever been in a situation where you've been up against this prosecutor where you've just absolutely just, this guy's a no contest for you? And does that necessarily equate to the outcome of a case as it's determined by the jury being a cakewalk for you?
Well, anytime, look, lawyers don't laugh at this, are human beings, lawyer jokes aside. Meaning they have natural thoughts, feelings in their own head that they would never share. So of course, human nature at some point will kick in, and you might say, this guy, the prosecutor, he doesn't seem up to this. He doesn't seem ready for prime time and whatnot. And we all do that. I mean, we're lawyers. By definition, 99% of lawyers are egomaniacs and sizing each other up with this and that. But when you do that, what a good lawyer does is the minute that happens, you say, duly noted, you whack yourself in the head and you say, forget it. Okay. I have a client whose liberty is at stake. I assume nothing. I am not overconfident. I am focused, laser focused, like, Tom Brady would say.
Right.
And I'm not going to let these thoughts get into my head. As far as how, you could also wonder, well, how does the jury look at that? And I think that's a fair point. I mean, she has good attorneys. They've obviously tried cases. They're professional. They speak well. They're prepared. As you said, they're groomed. I don't know the prosecutor, and I don't want to disparage it. I don't know what his skills are, but his courtroom presence compared to her side, the courtroom is tilted in that regard. Yeah. And, a jury, they notice those things. But I think the concern I would have if I were the prosecution is, are people wondering, this is, the so-called biggest case of the century out there. It's huge. I mean, it's a national case. You have a man who was killed who was a police officer. That always adds attention. You have a defendant who is not what you'd call your typical defendant for a lot of reasons. So that's going to add attention. It's tearing a town apart or whatever. So it's a big story, but you have to wonder, if this is such a big case, why don't they have, the big gun trying this from the DA's office? Or is this the big gun?
Right,
and
right.
It's more like a big pop gun. I don't know, but
doesn't seem like it.
And again, it's a big county, so I don't know how many. I mean, look, when I was a DA in Manhattan, we had 600 ADAs. I mean, it was, a different kind of place, and the people who used to work in that office, they would range from governors, Kennedys, all kinds of people. I don't know if that's the case in a smaller county like this, but whoever is the best and brightest and most skilled that they have, damn well should be trying the case. Now, based on, again, caveats aside, what little I've seen, both in terms of argument, poise, and presence, yikes.
Yeah, right.
Yikes.
Exactly. He's always coming in out of breath, number one. I mean, that's just like, he looks like he just rushed in. He's always...
Well, that's probably from being scared shitless.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's ripping butts in the parking lot, trying to calm himself down.
Smoking more than usual.
It's a big case, obviously. And again, human nature. I don't want to come across as, the guy who blew this, the idiot. I have to deal with the families. I have to deal with the protesters, the criticism. I have to deal with you guys talking about me.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, look, all those kinds of things. But I guess to me, just to get back to the question, it's stunning that you would think that there would be a go-to person in an office. It's not, you know, it's not a small town in Mississippi where the DA is the prosecutor. It's a big case. They've been theoretically preparing this for trial for what, 2 years now or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where we are. I mean, look, in terms of just legal skill, yeah, you know, again, it's easy for me to say because I'm not thinking like her lawyers are, which is I'm not going to get overconfident. I'm not going to think like this, but I would expect just in terms of presence, persuasive argument, legal acumen, and just overall lawyering skills, I would think that her lawyers are going to mop the floor with the prosecutor based on what I've seen.
I would hope so. Mazza, you got to go now, don't you?
Yeah, I got to roll. I got to rock and roll about my 8 p.m. Time limit for the evening. So, Mark, it was awesome meeting you. I was actually going to follow you on X, and I realized that I already follow you on X. So I was like, there we go. I must have come across you before, but it's been a pleasure coming on the show, Mike and Mark. Nice meeting you, and we love your input. It's been awesome, Mark. Thank you so much. And I'll take off now. Have a great evening, everybody. All right.
You too. Thank Mazamita. I want to keep the attorney for a little bit longer. I got one more, at least one more question. The third-party defense has come up. The judge ruled that she would somehow allow it, but not really from the beginning, not from the opening statements. Do you think that's going to affect their defense? And like, why allow it at all? Like, if she, like, why go halfway? Like, I always feel like this judge is trying to please both sides. How does that work? Like, you can't talk about it at the beginning, but later on you can. I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm going to assume, trying to piece this together, that what she's saying, perhaps not articulately, I don't know, is that if there is evidence that comes in that I hear that will support, you know, you can point the finger at some other person, I will allow it, but I need to know it exists before I say you can do it. In other words, I'm not going to let you open on it because an opening statement is not evidence. An opening statement is where the parties preview what they expect the evidence will be. And I'm going to assume that what the judge is doing is saying, I'm not going to let you open on this. Then it turns out you don't produce it. And now I have to instruct the jury to disregard that, but the cat's out of the bag and I don't want my jurors thinking and speculating. So I don't think it's necessarily the wrong ruling per se, but the bottom line is this: if they have, again, credible evidence that would support a reasonable view that it was a third party, then that's coming in. I mean, that's the law in every state. I mean, you have a right to present a defense, and if you have part of your defense is that someone else did it and there's evidence of it, I can do it. Now that's different than somebody getting up, in a closing argument or saying or cross-examining somebody and saying, well, isn't it a fact that, some guy down the street did it because I say so. And that's what really happened. I mean, you can't just do that and speculate and throw mud for the sake of throwing mud. But, if they're putting a very nuanced argument before the jury about why we think there's a third party that we can prove, or not prove, but suggest did it. Again, they don't have to prove anything. Let's be clear. The prosecution has to prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The third party defense would just, go a long way if a jury credits it. Well, let's be stronger than that. If the jury credits it, she's walking out free. End of story. On top of everything else. So I wouldn't assume that the judge is literally putting the stop to this. She does seem like a cautious judge from what I've seen, who maybe, again, it's a huge case. It may be something that's, not common, and it makes everyone nervous and act cautious, I guess. But I wouldn't assume that the defense is not going to be able to get that evidence before the jury. I would expect they would.
We got another question that came up, and I thought this was strange too. Kathy asks, is it unusual for a prosecutor in a criminal case to ask for the jurors to be Corey checked, which is a criminal background check. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Is that something that happens? Have you seen that? Where
Not in advance. I mean, look, normally the way this is done in New York, with all, all caveats apply, um, there are standard questions in jury selection that would be asked of all jurors as part of the initial screening. And of course, one of those would be, has anyone been convicted of a crime or been arrested? And, and then the jurors would get individually questioned about it, normally out of the presence of everyone else, because it's embarrassing. And of course, lawyers need to know that on both sides, because if somebody was wrongfully arrested or convicted, obviously a prosecution is going to say, well, this is a bad juror. They may be bitter at the system. They're not going to be fair and impartial, and vice versa. If somebody is a victim of a serious crime, or whatnot, you don't want jurors that can't be fair and impartial, notwithstanding what happens in Wendy world. Again, most sane, fair-minded people would agree, whatever they think of Karen Reed, that the way to resolve this, if there's going to be a trial, is a fair and impartial jury, and it'll happen, whatever's going to happen. So no, I think it is unique to literally pre-background check jurors. And it does sound a little Orwellian to be.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if somebody says I've never been convicted of a crime, and the other side finds out that that's not true, jury selection, the prospective jurors, they're sworn in. The statements they make are under oath.
Exactly.
Under the theory they'll tell the truth, which, is not always the case, as we all know. But to do that in advance is rare. That is not common. And as I'm finding out more and more every day, nothing about this case is common.
There's a lot of strangeness to it, especially with a federal investigation going on the whole time. And
that's crazy. That never happens.
Yes. People have questions all day, but a lot of the questions people are asking right now are so evidence-based that I just don't want to go there, because I know you don't know every detail of this case like we all do.
I guarantee I would. I mean, you can take a shot, and again, rather than guess, I'll let you know that I'm not that equipped.
Yeah.
But I'll leave that to you.
I'm just looking through now. But I really appreciate you. You're on Twitter. Tell people how they can find you, follow you on Twitter, on X, or wherever else you're on social media, or even I know you have a website too for your services.
Yeah, my website is bederowlaw.com. It's real original, last name law.com. That's what I use on X. I have a law office Facebook page like everyone else. And I have cases that very often are newsworthy in New York, so you could see some of that as well, just in the news or whatnot. But yeah, Bederow Law on X is where I am.
Here's a question that came up: will the defense submit their own exhibit list?
Yeah, I mean, a trial has to be fair for both sides. Yeah, I mean, obviously, a defendant has a constitutional right to a fair trial, but it's not, a trial is not designed to be trial by ambush. So, the sides have a right to know who are the witnesses, what are the exhibits you expect, to ask about, and you're supposed to have a general idea what's going to happen. Now, that's not always the case, but, and if there are strange names on the witness list, the parties could ask for what's called an offer of proof to say, Judge, I'd like to know what this witness would testify about. What I'd like to know is, did the DA ask for an offer of proof on Morrissey? And if they didn't, why didn't they? Was that because they were afraid of what, her lawyers were going to say in open court about why they need him to testify? So that I'd love to know. But yeah, they have to submit a witness list, an exhibit list, all of that.
Excellent. There's a question. Got a few questions, but someone said, other watchdog agencies that can investigate tax money being abused by investigators and DA. A lot of people think there's money being abused, especially in the Aidan Carney case, which is the witness intimidation with the billing with the special prosecutor. And is it possible? Does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, each state has. I mean, first of all, if the tax money is being misused, it depends. It could be just a wasteful thing where you have good government watchdogs. If it's being misused in other ways, you could have crimes being committed, possibly. I mean, for example, I think one of the things that people were wondering was in the Georgia Trump case was that, was when Fannie Willis basically hired her unqualified boyfriend to prosecute Trump and got money or vacations and gifts in return, whether that could have been some form of what we call honest services fraud. So there are groups. It could be it could be federal prosecutors, depending on what it is. It could be, I don't know if this is the case in New York, in Massachusetts, the Attorney General's office. I don't know if they have the jurisdiction. In New York, the Attorney General has criminal, authorization to bring certain types of cases. But yeah, no, there can be punishment. There could be ethical violations, and it may very well be that the Carney thing is one of those. I think that is about as dumb a prosecution that there is, and it's probably unconstitutional in terms of accusing him of witness tampering, given his status as a journalist and trying to get stories. They may think he's obnoxious, and he may be or not be, but that doesn't make him someone tampering with witnesses. Oops. Did I lose your sound? I think I lost you.
Oh, thank you. It was me.
Yep.
Thank you for letting me know. I think the thing on Aiden too is that he was so effective. That's why they went after him. If he had been effective for their side, for the prosecution, they would have never gone after him. It's just
Well, I'll tell you something. We talked earlier about like how jurors or the public perceive things. For them to go after him for this, the witness tampering. I mean, the stuff with the girlfriend, that's even worse. That's just embarrassing. But to go after him because he's reporting things that they don't like, and they think he's just too aggressive and obnoxious, again, all of that. All it does is demonstrate the profound weakness of the prosecution, that they are being, intimidated in the sense that, ouch, this hurts. We're losing, we're not being perceived the way we want to. And to use the power of the government to, suppress your journalist enemy, that's scary.
That's awful.
That's
really
terrible. I mean, look, again, they may not like him. They may think he does awful things or whatnot, but this is America. And you're not supposed to just arrest your enemies because you don't like what they're doing. And when that, enemy is a journalist, it makes it all the more complicated, from a legal standpoint. But God, does it make the DA's office look petty, pathetic, and desperate. It really does.
And there's been a lot of us that have been threatened, actually. So it's like beyond Aiden too. It's just it's what they've done is just horrible. It really is. It's disgusting. They've gone to people's houses, just average citizens. Some of them, even myself, I've felt a lot. I've gotten a lot of threats. But
it's good to know that Massachusetts has so much, public money available for important investigations and prosecutions too. That's very encouraging.
Right, especially when we actually don't have the money.
Right.
It's so funny. I know it was facetious, but it's just a reality. I just want to remind people we really don't have the money. Do prosecution witnesses have to say in advance if they will be pleading the fifth?
Maybe this is Wendy who submitted this question. No, all kidding aside, it's a good question. So the way it works is this: again, you have to differentiate between a witness and a defendant who is going to be a witness. A defendant has an absolute right not to testify. In fact, a judge will charge the jury that and say you may draw no negative inference from that, and lawyers will voir dire on that. Ask, will you respect that right? As far as other witnesses, unless there's an agreement where the parties, don't want to call the witness because they know they're going to do it, you can force the witness to get up there and take the fifth if it's just a regular witness. And look, obviously, if there are prosecution witnesses who have some, skeletons in the closet, and whether they have their own lawyers and are being advised that they would, from the defense standpoint, you're gonna play that card for all it's worth, and you're gonna drag them up there and have them look at the jury and say those, Ollie North words again and again. And sometimes too, in a rare case, a witness will start testifying and they will twist themselves into a pretzel to the point where a judge or one of the lawyers will say, approach the bench and say, this guy needs a lawyer because he's treading into likely perjury and, incriminating himself. But if there are prosecution witnesses who don't want to testify, they're going to have to tell the world and tell them from the stand.
That'll happen on the stand. That's when we'll find out, people, because I think a lot of people are wondering if some of these witnesses are going to plead the fifth. A lot of them, almost all of them, have big known like lawyers. Their attorneys have shown up in court. We know who they are. They're attorneys. They've got like some of the best criminal defense attorneys around. Like,
no, I mean, it's a problem. And, I know I read somewhere that one of the police officers involved, was hauled in before the federal grand jury and at least initially denied either knowing, the important people, or denied talking to them about it or getting gifts. And then, the feds have a way of making you come clean. Trust me. And then he eventually came clean. Now his lawyer is doing his job. I never fault the lawyer for saying, this is a nothing burger. We've been told by the feds he's not getting charged. He's not a target. That's not the point. I mean, that's a lawyer doing his job, protecting the witness client from the sense of getting indicted by the feds, maybe. But the bottom line is, if he's a witness who has to testify in this case, he's going to get destroyed by the defense, because whether he ultimately corrected the testimony, if he said A under oath and then contradicted it with B, and then they're able to extract the reasons why he did that because it was in front of a federal grand jury and this and that, and whether they can even say there's a federal grand jury, I don't know if the judge is allowing that, but whether he testified A then B, why would he deny knowing people involved? I mean, if he's doing an honest job, then just do an honest job. And then the lawyers will start with, if he's willing to lie about that stuff, the so-called smaller stuff, then ladies and gentlemen, what else is this guy not telling you? These are the things that I just, wonder, where in the hell is the DA going? Again, I'm not suggesting she absolutely has to be innocent.
right.
But I think all of these, I don't know, probably, frankly, but again, I'm willing to hear evidence. But as lawyers who do this for a living and just have an understanding of how these things generally work, I don't know the path to convincing 12 jurors, oh yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt, no doubt. And, fortunately for any person who ever gets charged with a crime, guilty or innocent, the Wendy Murphys of the world will never be on the jury, thank God. And, real jurors who are doing this seriously, how are you getting 12 out of 12 to say that there's no reasonable doubt just based on some of the issues that we've talked about? I don't see it.
Right. I could imagine that if you had an opportunity, you would have loved to take this case to be the defender.
Absolutely.
The dream case. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, it absolutely. This is, I get involved in a lot of very fascinating and interesting cases, and this would have been, right at the top. This is a great case. The good news is, she does have very good lawyers. And, the DA brought an indictment. She's pled not guilty. Judge didn't dismiss it. So there's really only one thing left for them to do, which is tee it up. And, the whole sordid saga will come out, at trial. And if I'll tell you one thing, if the DA's overall theory here is that she intended to either kill him or, cause him serious injury, which resulted in his death, and that's the basis of the murder charge, and the alleged motive is because, she left him a nasty voicemail, because, like happens every day in life, people break up and argue and fight and hate each other and whatever. It's a hard stretch to take what appears to be a seemingly sane, successful woman who just, has nothing better to do than say, I'll show him, I'll just plow over him in the snow and kill him and leave him in the driveway. Now, if that's their theory, it doesn't mean it's not true, but man, that's not great.
And we're getting a lot of comments tonight. The audience definitely enjoyed your expertise and your delivery. They really like you. So they want to know if you're going to come back. That was one of the recent comments. A few comments.
Again, this is what I do. I'm happy to talk to you about it as much as I can. Whether it be legal issues, whether it be,
Well, I was thinking, because we're gonna, be streaming it and watching this trial throughout. Will you come and call in again on
Sure.
like a weeknight and do kind of go through it with us on some of these nights? Sure. Especially, I know there's going to be some legal issues that come up, and I would love to have a criminal defense attorney on.
All I'll tell you is hopefully those nights will not occur during Celtics playoff games if possible.
Oh, you're a big Celtics fan.
Yeah.
Is tonight an off night? See, I should know.
Oh, we're good. We're good tonight.
You just let me know. You just we'll work it around the Celtics.
Tomorrow night bad. Tonight good. Tomorrow night bad.
Yeah.
But no, all kidding aside, I'm happy to help. Enjoy.
And so you come to Boston for the games?
I do. I come off, and actually, I was there this weekend for the Celtics and Bruins games. So I get back as much as I can. I still have some family.
So you're from Boston. You're from Boston.
I'm from Framingham. I'm from Framingham.
Oh, you're a Framingham dude. I knew a wrestler from Framingham, Sean Connery. I don't know if you know him. He's a Bridgewater State guy. Good wrestler. The Connery brothers.
The only Sean Connery I know is 007, but yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But yeah, so I want to thank you so much for being on here, Framingham guy. Sure. Did you go to school around here too?
No, I went to college out west and then came back to Syracuse for law school, and then I've been in New York City since.
Cool. All right. So cool. We got your whole background tonight. I thank you so much for being here tonight. This is great to have an attorney. Say where people can follow you again, find you.
At Bederow Law. That's just my last name, BEDEROW law.com.
Awesome.
Well, that's my at Bederow Law is the X Twitter. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Attorney Mark Bederow, thank you so much. We're the Young Jerks, and I want to thank everyone for listening tonight and watching. He was phenomenal. That was great. I really enjoyed that with him. Couple more things. I definitely wanted to thank everyone for watching and supporting. And we got a new member tonight. Thank you, Tina, for becoming a member. I haven't checked the Venmo or any of that. I don't see any come in. I don't think any came in tonight. I didn't hear any beeping. So that's good. I don't have to stumble through that. But no, I love your contributions when you give them, though. So it's not good. It's always good in everything, no matter if it's good or bad. But we're having fun tonight. I'm just blessed and thankful for the show right now, and just kind of what's going on with this movement for Karen Read. It has become a movement. Sometimes I'm hesitant to acknowledge the movement, but it's a movement. I mean, it's the thing that I like about it is people are engaged and involved, and I believe it's for a good cause. So I'm happy, and we're going to be back tomorrow night, I think at 7 p.m. with Paul, Dana, and Tracy. Resistance for Silence group. They got their podcast or their YouTube show. They're going to be coming on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. We're going to be talking about the protest. Someone said, no, it's definitely a movement. Yes. But I get shit. People give me shit like Kevin saying, no, you're so, whatever. I know. Why do I give a shit about losers like that? I don't. It was a great guest tonight. One of the things I wanted to maybe finish up on, we got some new video that came out. First of all, I'm going to play this little quick video. Jessica Machado, reporter for Fall River Reporter, has started to put out more on her interview with Mello, audio recording, a little clip.
Know that his ex-girlfriend was going to be a witness in this case. When did she become a witness?
She became a witness recently. We received some communication from her.
Of course, I played that too quickly. I hit the button. My technical difficulties. But this is Ken Mello. You know, she interviewed him. She put out this quick clip asking about Ken Mello specifically. A good question is like, you know, when did you first get in touch with Aiden's ex-girlfriend? And you heard Attorney Bederow mention that earlier tonight. So I have the clip. We're going to play it right now. It's a quick clip. Hopefully maybe have Jessica back on the show again soon and maybe talk about some of this stuff.
Did you know that his ex-girlfriend was going to be a witness in this case? When did she become a witness?
She became a witness recently. We received some communication from her, and I had a summons served on her on Friday. The summons had been prepared before our Superior Court appearance, and after Superior Court appearance, she was served with the summons.
So your connection with her was she contacted you first? You didn't have any reason to contact her until she reached out to you?
That's correct.
So there you go. I want to just play that because that's new news. And I checked Jessica Machado out on Twitter. Jessica Machado Show on X or Twitter. She's phenomenal. She's been a guest now twice in the show. Hopefully have her back to talk more about her reporting from the courthouse. But I thought that was interesting. I want to play that tonight. Another thing I wanted to play is our last show. My last show was a solo show, which I haven't been doing many of those. I've been doing a lot of guests, which are great. We're going to have some more great guests. We had a great guest tonight. But I got a good feeling when I do a good solo show because I'm not like naturally suited for them. I feel like it's a struggle at times, but I had a really good show playing the video from Michael Morris. No, from Michael Morrissey. That's what I missed. It was the Berkowitz retirement party. The Kenny Berkowitz, Kenton, what do we call him? Canton Sheriff, Canton Police Chief. See, I'm losing it right now. Canton Police Chief Kenny Berkowitz, his retirement party. We went through that. But what we didn't play, and we have clipped it and put it on our YouTube, so a lot of people have seen it, is the Michael Morrissey speech at the Kenny Berkowitz retirement party. I figured since we're going to trial, this would be a good time to just kind of go over that again. Just play it on the show. And that's where we're going to close the show. And we're going to have some fun with Kenny Berkowitz and especially Michael Morrissey tonight, just to end the show. And I want to thank everyone for supporting us. MJ, she's our moderator in the chat. She's been phenomenal. Thank you so much, MJ, for posting all the links and keeping our chat cool. Yeah, here's a comment. Ask Bob said, Mike, your Berkowitz show was the best ever. Your commentary was amazing. Thank you so much. We also hopefully going to be live streaming on Monday night. So tomorrow night, definitely. Wednesday night, we get the live show at 7 p.m. with Paul, Dana, and Tracy. We're going to be talking about the protest zones and all the stuff that's going on in court. I'm going to be having a great discussion with them tomorrow night. I don't know for the rest of the week. We're going to be doing some stuff, definitely. We've got a lot planned, but we're still working on things. But next week, Monday, hopefully, there may be a police audit live stream. We'll see the meeting around that. If it is live stream, we will be live. I think it's 7 p.m. from Canton. If that doesn't happen, we'll replay it when we get the actual video of it. And then definitely on Tuesday night, next Tuesday, you got the Canton Select Board meeting again. So we're going to be continuing to broadcast those government meetings because I think it's really important with what's going on with Karen Reed right now. So let's finish. Let's finish with this funness right here. This bunch of funness. That's not a real word. It's bad grammar. Bunch of fun here.
Presentations. We'll do dinner, and then we'll continue with the program. I'd like to call District Attorney from Norfolk County, Mike Morrissey, up to say a few words.
Thank you,
Do
Chief.
these guys like to drink? This is the thing.
No, I've been a
These
DA
guys
for a number
like
of
to
years
drink.
and
Look at
worked with a number of chiefs, but my office is here in Canton, and we've had a long, great relationship with the
it's so
town
funny.
and Chief Berkowitz.
I'm asking the question before there's even, he's going to show us it right here, obviously, but you all know the answer. We all know the answer. Do these guys like to drink? Asking if politicians in Massachusetts like to drink. I wish they all smoked cannabis instead, but they all like to drink. And I know some of them do smoke cannabis because I've actually smoked with some of them, but most of them prefer just to drink. And this is Michael Morrissey, definitely likes to drink. And he's at Berkowitz's retirement party. This is the Canton police chief that is a witness for the defense now. I don't think he's probably going to be what they call a hostile witness for the defense. The defense may be calling him in the Karen Reed case. And he found taillight many, many hours after all these other police searched the area, the scene of the Karen Reed, John O'Keefe situation. And here is Michael Morrissey, his good friend, the district attorney. Berkowitz and Morrissey are like dinosaurs. They've been in position forever. So naturally they know each other. And naturally they both like to drink. So here is the retirement party. Here's Michael Morrissey.
And I know that I like the fact that I've had very few call-outs, and hopefully, Helena, that will continue, that we don't get together too often. But when we've had difficult cases, it's a first-rate department, and we enjoyed a lot of support from the chief. Now, I know some of my friends have, having been in politics for a long time, I said, well, geez, I could bring him a citation. You're retiring. Who cares? So sorry about that, Billy Galvin. So all right. Well, the bad news is my friend is running for re-election, and hopefully you'll vote for him, because I need people like that to stick around too. So, but the chief and I have a lot in common, but one particular thing, and I know other people, when they retire, they get watches and things like that, and that's great and stuff. But the chief and I actually share an important hobby together. So sharing that hobby, I actually got him, and Chief Wells would understand this, something useful. So Yeti beer containers, so you can keep the stuff cold down at Marina Bay. So
they share something in common, drinking. They like to drink together. See, Berkowitz is such a networker. I would doubt if he just drinks for the network effects. So, I mean, what other thing is Berkowitz going to have in common with Michael Morrissey? We like boats and we like to drink. I mean, see, I think this is the real Michael Morrissey. I'm not sure Berkowitz, but this is what your DA in Norfolk County. This is how he remembers the police chief from Canton, who's been there forever. We both like to drink beer. We like to drink the beer. You know what? The only thing I'm surprised is not like a Patriots koozie. It's not what is it? Let's see.
I also got two different colors, so you can, at least the captain and the mate can keep the beer cans separate, so we don't confuse them in your old age. So I just wanted to say that it's been a pleasure to work with you. You left the department in great hands, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And I just want to say long and happy and healthy retirement. Congratulations, Chief.
I'm giving you beer. I'm going to give you a beer and a beer container, a beer holder, a koozie.
Thanks, Mike, and say hi to Judy. I hate missing his party. Captain Dugan from Quincy is retiring tonight as well.
If this was a free meal, he would have been here.
Next we have.
There we go, folks. That was Michael Morrissey. They like to drink together. I know. Give him a koozie. It's a cheap gift too. It was really cheap. 2 beers and I don't even think was there a 6-pack there? We should look. It looked like he just gave him 2 beers, 2 koozies. The overpriced Yeti coolers. Koozies. Yeah, overpriced Yeti coolers. Oh, so they were Yeti. Oh, they were high designer. They were like high-end koozies. who they really like to drink, these guys. I know it is funny, isn't it? But I want to thank everyone who's been supporting the show, subscribing, sharing, commenting. And I want to thank our guest tonight, Mazza Media. Follow him. And especially attorney Mark Bederow. Follow him, Bederow Law. Check him out on X. Follow him. Subscribe to him. I think we were posting his links throughout the show here in the chat. So you can definitely check that out. I'm pretty sure MJ probably posted that. If she didn't, I will try to get it in the comments on our Twitter and definitely on YouTube comments later. So I'll see everyone tomorrow night, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Looking forward to it. Paul, Tracy, and Dana. And awesome show, Mike. Phenomenal questions from Mike, the attorney. No, it's not Mike, the attorney. It's Mark. It was Mark Bederow. But yes, I asked the questions. Definitely. I think we did have some good questions for him tonight. Just checking out your comments right now. Yes, Mark, you got it. Look him up, Mark Bederow, Bederow Law. He's on Twitter. Follow him. Make sure you're following him. He posts a lot of good stuff. And there was not a Canton Select Board tonight. It seems like they're limiting the amount that they have now. It's next Tuesday, a week from tonight. So we'll be definitely broadcasting that. Oh, thank you for the comments, White Paint. See, someone said White Paint said we're the best show, Mike. I don't think we're the best show, but I enjoy it. I'm trying. We do try. We try to make sure we have good sound for you, good guests, good questions. But there's always better shows. I watch a lot of shows. But you know what? You know what I like about our show is this chat and our audience. I really like the community here and who you all are. So I want to thank you. Yeah, it is another way to limit public comment, to do less select board meetings, it seems like. Yeah, our guest was great. Attorney Bederow was really good. I knew he would be. Criminal defense attorneys I've never had a bad one. And he did not disappoint. He was like hit the bar and then went over it. He was very good. All right. I'll see you everyone Tuesday night, 7. So tonight's Tuesday, Wednesday night. I'm getting all my dates mixed up. Tomorrow night. I'll see everyone tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Looking forward to it. Oh, I want to thank Tanya for just doing a super chat. We just got a super chat for thank you so much. A super sticker. Right when I'm saying goodbye, you added me with super chat, so I got to stay a little longer. But thank you so much. Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, MJ said it too. Thank you, Tanya. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. And yes, I think drinking heavily in Massachusetts, especially, is almost a required for getting into politics. Yeah, I've been to a lot of social events, especially in the politics side of it, and they always that's the thing I always laugh at. I'm like, man, if we could just smoke weed here instead, I wonder if it would change the politics, because it's always drinking, always drinking. I get that mindset. I feel like it's a weird thing. It's been like that for thousands of years, though, right? Hundreds of years, at least here. All right, I'll see everyone later tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'm getting loopy tonight. I'm a little loopy. I'm too tired. Been working too much, trying to do too much. And I know it's just going to get crazier with this trial and my schedule, my dog business too. I'm trying to juggle two things that are both going crazy. So I'll see everyone tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I love you all.